3 for 3 is produced by Impact Networking, hosted at the state-of-the-art Unified Support Operations Center in Lake Forest, Illinois. To find out more about the company, schedule a tour of our facilities, or speak to a representative, visit us on the web at impactmybiz.com.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dick Stockton, and welcome to 3 for 3, an inside look into the careers of icons from many walks of life who have made history, they've broken down barriers, and they continue to bring change in their community. I'm joined today by Bill Jacobs, the Impact Networking Chief Diversity Officer, and our very special guest, DeWayne Peevy, who is the new Athletic Director at DePaul University here in Chicago, the first African American to hold that post and the 9th overall for the school. So DeWayne, welcome here, and a huge step for you. Coming from great term at the University of Kentucky in the Southeast Conference, you're now in one of the major cities. And I want to ask you, as a youngster in Alabama, and you were a baseball player, you know, in Montevallo and everything, and you've been in the South. Now you're coming up here to Chicago. What does this mean to you to be athletic director at this school?
Well, first of all, thank you, Dick. Thank you, Bill, for being here. I think the biggest things for me is knowing where I came from, small inner city kid, Birmingham, Alabama, single parent home. The one thing I had going for me that I was pretty good at school, and it allowed me to go to school outside of my local constraints to better my education. And I fell in love with the sport of baseball, which is another outlier for my community. And what it did, it just opened a lot of avenues and different exposures to other mentors in my life to give me a broad spectrum of the possibilities of what I could do with my career. I love sports from day one. Pre-ESPN days, right? Want to watch every sport, baseball, football, basketball, hockey, you name it. I was the little kid in the neighborhood that had all the bats and gloves and sports equipment, and would get a group of guys together and let's go play sports. So I was an athletic director way back then, trying to coordinate people to go enjoy athletics. And I think part of that is what I feel the most proud about, if anything. My mother was a juvenile youth detention officer for 30 years, the first 30 years of my life. And I saw the impact of what mistakes could make when I either visit her at work, and the last thing I was going to do is embarrass her and show up at her place of work and get in trouble where maybe some of my classmates or some of the young people I grew up with were making those decisions. And that really is what led me on the right path. And I think, being the youngest of four, having the most opportunity, I set out to make my mother proud. And I think that was the thing that drove me to do something a little different than what my surroundings were providing for me.
What was it like growing up? What did your mother do? You said you were good at class.
Yeah.
A lot of people are not good at class and succeed anyway in their endeavor. What did she do? Tell me specifically what happened where you became a student.
Well, I think maybe it goes back to my background. My grandmother, Annie Lou Peevy, she's 100 years old right now.
Wow.
Just talked to her not too long ago. She's Zooming like everybody else. She's back in Helena, Alabama. She's a teacher. And I think just that element of having two older sisters that were 6 years and 10 years older than me, they would bring their schoolwork home. And I was such a sponge that I wanted to learn what they were learning. So before I even got to grade school, I'm learning all kinds of things in elementary and just getting ahead of it from a math standpoint, English. My favorite book was to read the encyclopedia, and I would start with A and read about all these animals. I loved animals, and those are things before I got into grade school, and so it really challenged me. Being the youngest, you want to, impress your older siblings and just being involved. And, once I got in sports, I was the one that really kind of pushed more in that, and they all supported me. But I think those are the things where I wasn't necessarily the greatest student because it came easy to me because I was getting advanced learning. So by the time I was in first grade, I'd done that 3-4 years ago. And so it was interesting as I went older in life, of the adjustment I had to make when I would get challenged, because things came easier to me early on. And so I had more of a knowledge versus just being a really good student or having great study habits and things of that nature.
We're going to get to the letter M of the encyclopedia before the end of this segment, I want you to know. Fascinating things here. Did you read? You read a lot as a youngster.
Youngster, yes, definitely did. I think I was very interested just in learning.
People don't read as much now.
I don't do enough of it now. I'm an Audible guy now because I don't have the time. So I'm in the car, or I'm working out. I've got to phase it into what I'm doing. But continuing education is something that has always been instilled in me. I just finished my master's. At 47, I just did an executive MBA program between the University of Kentucky and the University of Louisville. I'm actually graduating on May 15th. From that. And it was just another thing. I didn't plan on doing that while I was in my first year as athletic director at DePaul University, but that challenge, thinking about that now, if I did that 20 years ago, the things I've learned in that program, having a chance to have a remote learning experience, just like the young people that I'm working with every day at DePaul, that'll be something I look back on where the timing actually did work out to my benefit versus doing it right out of college.
A couple of things hit me. Number one, you were an athlete, and there were a lot of guys that play athlete in school and don't care about watching games and don't care about but you were into the media aspect of it, even when you were playing like that. That was one thing. But I want to ask you about those that were not as fortunate and made mistakes. And what did you counsel them? How did you counsel those people when you were younger?
I think that's the biggest thing, is that I've been that confidant, that trustworthy friend, that person that's helped others along the way. I think that's the nature. My mother has always been that person. My mom was the team mom on every team I ever played on until she couldn't do it anymore, like right about till I got to high school. And I don't know how she did it, because she worked the 11 to 7 shift in the youth detention. So she was 11 at night to 7 in the morning, getting me to school, after I get out of school, doing all these team activities. I don't know how long she went to sleep before she got to go to work that night, but she would pull it off. And so I'm so used to, when people talk about being an athletic director, I talked about in college athletics, it's controlled chaos is what it feels like. I don't know if I could be in a situation where it's 9 to 5, is structured, and every day is similar. I thrive in the chaos. I'm used to going into a work week and there's not much on my calendar, and a lot of things get thrown my way. And I could be a firefighter one day, I can be the mentor another day. You got to be a jack of all trades. But I think that's just things I've grown from my upbringing. Little did I know, my mom is a numbers person. Even though she didn't have her degree was in social work, I'm an accounting undergrad and I get my MBA, and I never knew that was something that was about her. Maybe that came from it too. And I think that's the thing that drew me to sports from watching it, is the numbers piece. I love reading the sports page and getting involved in statistics, and I was scoring baseball games with my granddad, watching the Cubs play on WGN back before I even knew I'd be doing this for a profession or leading that way.
We haven't talked for more than 10 minutes so far, and I will go out, having talked to a lot of people, that you were kind of meant to be where you are right now, and you were destined. You were destined as a young child that you got to this point, and it's like, I would think, for you, I should be here right now. I should be doing this job. Do you feel that way?
And I think that was the thing, going back to the first question, where obviously at some point, I remember back in 2000 when I joined the Southeastern Conference office, and I'm sitting in Roy Kramer's office, the commissioner, head of the BCS at the time, probably the most powerful person in college athletics at the time, very intimidated. I'm coming from a small, at the time, NAIA school in 30 miles south of Birmingham, and I walk into his office. And I told him that I want to be a commissioner or a major Division I athletic director. That's what was my goal.
And
this is back in 2000.
When was this, 2000?
Yes. Now, I didn't think it would take 20 years at the time, but I had that mindset. But the thing that really got me is last summer, when the incidents with George Floyd and others, I put together a Black Student Athlete Advisory Group at Kentucky, just to get our students together, just to share their thoughts and talk about different things. And that group is what motivated me. I was a deputy athletics director at Kentucky. I had a great job. I could have finished my career doing that, have an opportunity maybe to be an AD down the line. But that group, the way they looked up to me, I didn't see the role I was playing, even being the deputy at Kentucky. it made me realize that summer I need to go be an athletic director. I needed to lead a group of people. I needed to lead a group of young men and women, not just do the work behind the scenes. I needed to be to the front so they could see me there and think about that's what I want to do one day. And then lo and behold, a month later, the DePaul job opens up. I mean, it was, like you said, fate intervened. I think it was meant to be. And I immediately was trying to figure out, okay, I thought I was a great fit for DePaul and hoping that they felt like it was reciprocal and the same thing. And as I came here and visited Lincoln Park, I snuck on campus ahead of time. I think back then when they were doing all the interviews off site, and I really fell in love with the community and the balance of it. You know, being a Birmingham, Alabama kid, my mom was a teenager in the civil rights movement. To get to a point to be the first African-American athletics director at a Chicago school, DePaul University, that I saw on WGN growing up, the first college basketball I remember. To me, I never would have dreamt that this being the first opportunity that I ever got in my career, and hopefully my last.
So the question is, what's the biggest challenge you face at DePaul?
Well, the first one was starting the job September 1 in the middle of a pandemic. I still have staff members that I've never met personally. So the fact that you got a leg up on some of my staff. But that interaction with those students because of COVID-19 protocols made it a little difficult. I made it a point to make sure I saw all our teams compete this year, which normally wouldn't be a challenge. We didn't have any fall sports because the Big East postponed all fall sports. So we pushed all of those into the winter quarter. So I will probably be the only and the last, hopefully, athletic director at DePaul where all 15 of our sports were competing in one quarter because they were all shoved into one area. And so that was a challenge. You know, first time athletic director, you're dealing with something that's unique to everybody. Everybody's going through first time challenges. But I think that'll make us stronger. The way I look at it, that was year 0. This next fall is year 1. And that's when we get a chance to have some fun. I've got a new coach on board, making a change in leadership in men's basketball. There's a learning curve that I was able to kind of enjoy behind the wall of the pandemic, honeymoon, so to speak. And I feel like it's all a challenge every day. And I got to be prepared for it and be that prime example for our young people of what hard work, perseverance, dreaming big about it, and like I said, in 2000, this is what I wanted to do. I had no idea what I was talking about then, but at least I thought about this is where I wanted to go, and hey, here I am today.
It's a tremendous story, actually, because you had the enthusiasm and drive. I think trust has got to be there. I know that John Calipari has mentioned that word first in talking about you. Other words that he's used is that you're creative and you've been a great listener. A lot of times, listening is at the bottom of the list with a lot of people.
Yeah, I've got to make sure my wife watches this. So Allison at home, to give me credit that I'm a listener, because I think she really helps me learn that I've got to take my time and listen and interject. And you know, you're right with Coach Calipari and our experience. When he joined Kentucky, I've been there a year, and back then I was the sports information director for Kentucky basketball, and our relationship grew over starting a Twitter account. Back then, it wasn't in college, a lot dabbled into pro sports, and we started an account. And so we had to talk 3-4 times a day because I was managing his account, but it was really him telling me what he wanted to tweet out.
So you talk to him a lot.
Oh yeah, and then keep in mind, we haven't played a season. This is the off season, right? And at that point in time, we weren't, students weren't on campus during the summer in basketball and all the workouts and stuff they're doing now. So we had a lot of time between April and the start of the season to grow in a relationship. And we had over 1 million followers before we played a game. But I think that relationship brought us to where we're talking about 11 years later. My kids look at him as Uncle Cal. My son had his 10-year-old birthday party at his house. He's a confidant, a friend. Got a chance to talk through a lot of things last year because it was a first-time experience for him in Kentucky and their team last year. Me being in a new job, get a chance to just talk about some dynamics of how we adjust and what would we be doing together if we were normally. We both missed each other a little bit because we normally would just be talking through some of our issues. And I think some of my dreaming, even though that was from my forefront of what I started as a young person, Cal always reminded me that I had to bring it every day. He's an idea guy. I know I appreciate him saying I'm creative. He's an idea guy. And so what do I bring to the table outside of being an execution person, like just taking his ideas and execute it? No, I needed to bring ideas to the table as well to give very good value. And I think that put me on a track to be able to look at more as just a media relations person, to be an administrator, because dreaming big is what I've been doing every day at Kentucky for a program like that. So if you take something like DePaul, and thinking about what our surroundings could be like, that was natural for me.
I want to ask you, on the average, what percentage of college athletes actually go pro?
I mean, you're talking 3-4% at the highest level, like the best of the best. Now there's some outliers, and go pro is a stretch. Now we're not talking about like just major NBA, NFL, MLB. We're talking about period.
Okay.
But I mean, you got to realize we're preparing these young people to be the best versions of themselves so they can go out and be dynamic in our community, in our world. That's going to be the bigger impact. If they're a professional athlete, they're still going to be after that too.
Absolutely.
How do you get as much out of your experience at a place like DePaul University to the point where you and your family are greatly impacted? Before you start that, you've got to start having that mindset of thinking about after college. The minute you walk in that door, we want to plan for you as a freshman. We want to see you grad. There's a reason there's a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. But that's also not just in the classroom, where you're preparing yourself for life. And I think that's the thing we've got to do a better job with our young people, especially now, because there's so much out there, and have a better understanding. What can we teach them to the point when they leave our school? And that's the opportunity we want to do for some of the young people coming into our program, to be totally equipped to be able to handle what's out there.
Have you all thought about doing some type of collaboration in the area of technology with some firms out here like Impact?
Yeah, I think those are the next steps for us, is that how do we get our relationships? How do we take advantage of the fact that we're in a major media market like Chicago, where you have great partners like Impact that can integrate into what we're doing and teach actual experience and skills that you can start. I mean, it's just like what we talked about with college athletics. And you made a great point. College athletics, to me, is the perfect example of what America should be. You've got people from all walks of life, race, religion, creed, upbringing, that can come together on one team with a common goal and go try to win a championship or title and be bonded for life because of that experience.
Yes.
If we could live like that in America, where everybody could be, okay, we want to be better, we want to be greater, we have one focus, man, it would be we get a lot more done.
Do you think that we can do it, and are we headed that way? What's your opinion?
I mean, if you think about it, if young people can come together that are about as opinionated as can be, if you have the right leadership and you can believe in it and you can all get focused. We've seen bad teams, we've seen teams that are not together, so that's kind of like what we've got a little bit. But when you really get focused, they don't have to be the most talented. They can just be together, and you can accomplish so much. And that's the same thing in the business world. That's the same thing in some of the relationships we do. When people come together, like just even the three of us, there's so many things we can accomplish together with our own experiences and the differences we have than any of us can think about handling individually. And that's just a perfect example of what you're talking about with Impact. Those kind of relationships is what's going to grow this machine. That's the thing that's going to allow DePaul University and our athletic program to really dream big. Because there is no ceiling for us right now.
Well, you're obviously using your upbringing and the way things went with you right now in talking to these kids. Your biggest hire so far was Tony Stubblefield as the head basketball coach. And of course, everyone wants DePaul to do better than they've done. They haven't been in the NCAA tournament since 2004. How did you pick Tony?
Well, I did an exhaustive search, and what I was looking for was a partner. I needed someone that was ready to grind, but also that had aspirations of winning a championship, not getting a little better, just need a stepping stone job. I want DePaul to be a destination spot for whether it's the head coach or the athletic director. We want to build this thing to a point where you don't have to go anywhere else to have that level of success. The great thing about us in the Big East, if you compete in the Big East at a high level, you're competing for a national championship. We've got, with Villanova and UConn in the league, we got people that have won championships in recent history. Okay, how do we become that third type of team of that group that really has a chance. And I mean, I would say I'm probably going to be an unofficial member of the NABC because I talked to 37 coaches. And I wanted to cast a wide net because I really need to figure out what they thought of us, what we had, and where we were in the situation. There's a lot of coaches where I felt like I was convincing them based on me or what I was selling. They bought into my energy or what I could bring to the table. That couldn't be the only thing. I wanted somebody to partner with me, but I wanted somebody that I didn't have to grab his hand and lead him the whole way. Right. You know, I talked to a couple of female candidates. I talked to assistants. I talked to people with MBA experience, extensive college experience. I had to look because I needed a perfect fit for what we need at DePaul right now. And I think I've got the guy in Tony Stubblefield. And basically, what Tony, I didn't know Tony at all before this process, but he was one of the first people that I had on my short list of 20 that I wanted to talk to. And obviously, Oregon was in the tournament. This year, normally we'd go on site, you do interviews with coaches, but because of the bubble, we did some Zooms. Right. And I had a short Zoom with him, and I wanted more time to talk to him. And then so the way it played out, Oregon lost the next weekend, and I got a chance he actually was trying to drive up, but we got a chance to get him on a flight to Chicago like the next day after they were going home. And it was like, I walked away, this is our guy.
Yeah. Well, you know, obviously you did your homework, and I think what we gleaned from this interview with DeWayne Peevy, the new athletic director of DePaul, and it's a lesson for everybody, no matter what your job, is always be thinking, try to be creative, don't let your mind waver. What can I do? What can I do that it's going to be special, that's going to be different? How can I make that happen? And I think you've done that. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you,
Good luck to you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
DeWayne Peevy, the new athletic director at DePaul, joining Bill Jacobs and myself, and hope you enjoyed 3 for 3 today.